The interwebs.
The interwebs. Yes, please.
All right, you are live.
Thanks, Tammy. Righty. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Bond Oversight Committee for November 21st, 2025. I'm Julie Hoy.
I'm Mickey Barney.
Linda Nishioka.
Bob Courtwright.
Urban and Brown.
All right. Great. Thank you everyone for being here. We need a motion for approval of the September 25th meeting minutes.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Barney. We can do this all in one, right?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have an aye from Dr. Brown as well. And any opposed? Nope. All righty, moving on to action items. Oh, public comment rather. Do we have anyone signed up? No, thank you. Action items, none. New items, introduction and discussion on bond savings and premium use policy. Kelly?
It's me. And I am actually going to pivot to Josh. So Josh and I did a little switcheroo with we're moving things around. So if you look at your agenda, we are going to actually have the cash flow update from Alan, as well as a little preview from Josh to kind of set the stage for that conversation I'm going to have with you guys about premium policy. So let me share my screen for Josh's presentation real quick.
Sorry for the last minute.
Yeah, it was the last minute.
I'm all right. I didn't feel a thing.
Great. And share that guy. And play. Here we go. I guess you can have the keyboard, of course.
Thank you. Okay, just a little bit, it's been a little while since we talked about this. Just to remind everyone, how bonds work. We're coming up on the second second bond issuance. So we're trying to set the stage a little bit for that, to talk about how it works. The mayor had a great suggestion to walk through this. Just so everyone's clear on how it works, because there's going to be some things happening that some of you have never seen before. So we want to make sure we're on top of explaining what that might be. As a reminder, up to 300 million, 10-year project plan, maintain a levy rate of $1.20 per thousand of assessed property value. And that's really important to note, so in the ballot language is up to 300 million. We've only issued 100 million of that. So the plan, when we issued it, so all these projects, and we're trying to stage it. So we're trying to match cash flow with the project plan to make sure we don't have too much money sitting there before it's needed. And also to make sure we have enough money there for when it's needed. So it's kind of this delicate balance to make sure you have enough money sitting there. And also to make sure you're compliant with the IRS guidelines for tax-exempt general obligation bonds. So the plan from the beginning was to have 3 different issuances of $100 million each to maintain that levy rate. So I don't know if we've shown this slide for quite a while, but this is really showing how we're trying to maintain that $1.20 per thousand of the debt service levy rate. So when you get your property tax bill, when people dissipate their property taxes, a lot of people just did. I've been getting some phone calls. Not about bonds, thankfully, but just the local option levy. People have had questions. So the nice thing about this bond is with 3 issuances, you're able to recalibrate to that $1.20 when you issue new dollars. But the idea is to have 3 tranches. So while our other older bonds are expiring, coming off the tax rolls, we're bringing on these new bonds onto the tax rolls. And what that looks like, there's a few steps. One is pass an authorizing resolution. So for all 3 tranches that happened in 2022, so the city council gave city management authority to issue up to that $300 million. So that only happened once. The things that happen each time is we put together a disclosure document, which is a big preliminary official statement with a lot of information about the city. If you're ever interested and want to find something out about the city, look at the last time they issued debt. I guarantee it's in there. They have a lot of information there. That gets circulated with the city council, it gets circulated with city staff. It gets shared throughout each step of the process. And that happens about 10 weeks before closing. So right now we're looking at issuing the next tranche probably in March of 2026. So here, right after the first of the year, we'll begin that disclosure process. Then we have a rating presentation. So we generally use Moody's. What that looks like is a lot like it happens in the private sector. There's a rating call, basically. So I sit down with other key members of city management. In this case, it's probably Gretchen and Brian to talk about the actual project details if they're interested. A lot of time they're just financial questions, but we walk through a pretty prescribed presentation from our financial advisor, talking about where the city's at, talking about our 5-year forecast, talking about the actual bond, the actual projects, so talking about our 10-year project plan. And they can ask lots of questions, wide ranging, across the board. My experience is they've already done a lot of research. So they've looked at our city council meetings, they've looked at our budget committee meetings, our 5-year forecast. And then after that, probably like a week later, they give us a draft rating, and they give us a little time to respond if there's anything materially incorrect, then they publish it. So that gives a rating to prospective buyers for our bonds, which are generally brokers. And that happens before the actual bond sale. So then 2 weeks before closing, we actually have the sale of the bonds. So there's a system, it's called Parity. It's a really old software system. It looks like a little like MS-DOS, but it's how these municipal bonds are sold. And so we post the offering, and then others can bid on the offerings, and then it'll hopefully have 10 to 15 offer for bids for our bonds. And then it calculates the estimated true interest cost of those bonds, so it takes into account the interest they're offering, any premiums, and then calculates it over time for what the true interest cost is. And generally, we just pick the lowest true interest cost for what the broker's offering. And then there's a little button where you have to click it and confirm, say they're the winning bidder. And then it goes back and forth kind of with underwriting to confirm all our disclosures. So I'll move this little box.
Who does the interview?
So we hire a financial advisor, and that includes underwriting service. So then you technically sold the bonds, but you haven't closed. So just like if you would close on a home loan, we have a big packet of information that we go through and sign when we're actually closing on the bonds. And then what happens is we close the bonds get posted, and then what will generally happen is that broker will resale them to investors. So big process. One thing that's really important, I've been on a few panels where we talked about this with other finance directors. And the biggest thing is building the team. So like when you're thinking about it, it's not just me and Brian.
Right.
It's not just staff. So we hire a outside bond attorney that we have on contract, our financial advisor, and then kind of these other little pieces, paying agent and other things. And then it's all really well coordinated to get to that bond close. Brian, you've been through it. Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it great. It's I would just say it's a really interesting process, and the amount of effort and detail that goes into it is pretty impressive. So yeah, and it's when those bonds get issued or when they go out to sale, I mean, we're out there with at least nationwide, maybe even more so, with big brokers trying to secure them. So and I've been very impressed a few times that I have participated.
Awesome. Thank you for the education.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. Not something you do every day, or I
definitely
do
not.
every day.
Sorry, it's still.
It's okay.
Oh, we're actually gonna go.
Say on the cash flow scale.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that up. So now that we kind of have a little bit of context of how the bonds or how we issue bonds and all the back end stuff. We are going to have Alan talk about escape. We're gonna have him talk about once the cash comes in and how that workflow happens. So do you want the long sheet, Alan, or do you want the summary sheet?
Let's start with the summary sheet.
Okay. Good.
Sweet, okay. So everybody here should have a hard copy of this. And kind of two things that I wanted to do today with, besides just give you an update on expenditures is I know at the last meeting we had back in September, there was a question about kind of where are we in terms of health and our spending and how are projects trending and that kind of thing. So that's a lot of what this summary is meant to show you. And then the next more detailed, larger size piece of paper underneath that we'll get to in a minute, kind of breaks it down into a little more detail and gets to a little bit more of maybe the bond sale or where we're tracking there. And I think we can shoot. So Josh will jump in and correct me for anything I get wrong on that. Sure. But so I really just kind of wanted to explain how this table is laid out. And we won't go through every project, but just kind of give you a sense of my take on where we're at. And what I did here, or what we did here with this table is kind of reorganize it and move the categories that we've been most active in the first part of the bond to the top. And then projects that are completed or very near completion and essentially in the closeout stage, we've moved those to the top of each category. So you can see with the work that we've done, how we're trending. So if you go back to the top one, Kelly. So we started with parks because that's where we've done the most projects. And we have 3 projects there that are completed or in closeout. And I will say that the third project on the list, Livingston and Livingston, that sounds like attorneys. It's actually, it should be Livingston and Morningside.
That's great.
Is part of a bigger playground package, right? We funded with the bond 10 playground replacements, and so we kind of broke these out, even though it's part of a bigger project, just so you can see how we did on those two. So what we show here is kind of modest savings on each one of those projects as we got through to completion. I think a lot of that is probably due to a very competitive bid environment that we've seen throughout most of the program. And that's been the good news here. I think it's kept us pretty close to on our estimates. The rest of the program, you can kind of see we've got original budget, what we've spent through the end of September, and then what's projected through completion. If a project hasn't started yet, then generally we're showing pretty much counting on all or nearly all of the funds. Our project managers' cash flows don't always exactly match up with the project total. That's why there might be a small difference. But in general, that's what we're showing for projects that haven't started yet. For projects that are in design, there's a little bit more up-to-date cash flow. But if we haven't bid yet, we're still being pretty conservative and thinking that most, if not all, of the money is going to go out with it. So that's the parks projects I mentioned. Those are the 3 that we're in closeout on. If you wouldn't mind. Oh, and the other one in that list is Gear Park, which is nearing completion. And that one is pretty much trending on coming in right on budget. So
It's beautiful.
yeah, I got some pretty pictures to show at the end of the meeting.
When is the opening? I don't remember.
For Gear. Was it then that we're talking about skate park or the rest of the amenities, but I think they're planning both towards spring, right? Because
Yeah, there'll be a little more splash on the skate park next week, or the skate park next week. The skate park actually quietly opened this week, but there'll be more of a communication splash next week. And then you're right, Kristen.
Yes, I was talking to 5 people out there skating yesterday. They just.
That's good. Did you join them?
a lot of them tried it out before.
I wasn't even comfortable walking down into some of the bowls. It's so smooth. I thought, boy, I don't know if this is it.
So moving on to the transportation category, which is where we've had the next most activity. So there's 2 projects that are in closeout. And the first one was our first pavement R&R package down in Commercial and Liberty. And you'll notice kind of the note out on the side there. So that is the one of the projects where we allocated some bond premium, some reserve funding. Because our first look at that project, once the bond pass showed us we were we were looking short. That's a good thing that happened because we definitely needed some of those extra funds, but we are showing saving about half of that, close to 300,000 to be able to give back. So that's good news. And I would tell you that going forward, I think those pavement R&R projects are probably the ones where we've got the most exposure to cost, and we did pretty quick estimates on those. And I think when you go through the design and look at everything that goes into them with the ramps and signal adjustments and everything else, that's probably where we've got the biggest variation between our estimates. So having that premium infusion for that project was good, and it could happen again on some of the projects going forward. The bridge rehab projects, which we came and talked to the group about earlier this summer, and kind of a trend there with the first bridge needing a lot more work. So we had intended to, and we got your approval to use some of those savings from 2024 if we needed to. It turns out the Liberty Street Bridge was the worst of the four. The other three came in pretty well. And so we're going to finish pretty close to on budget there and won't need to tap into those savings. So it's back to the general pot.
Alan, could I interrupt you? Counselor Brown has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Actually, I do not. My apologies.
Thank you.
It's just a high five.
That was a high five. There we go.
So yeah, I mentioned kind of pavement R&R is where I think some of our issues may arise in the future, but the good news is 2025 pavement R&R, which is all out on Silverton Road right now. That one is on budget, and we had built some alternates into that just in case we came up short, but we had to fund all of those. So that work is just getting underway. And then the last, maybe just scroll down to the last page. Oh, sorry, the next to last page. So the other project where we've allocated some premium is the Civic Center.
Oh, sorry, I went too far.
There
we go.
there.
There we go.
And that project, as everyone knows, is getting under construction. And so we'll keep track of it. But the way design build works is, we've got a long list of things we'd like to do there that we're going to try to fund as many of them as we can. And we'll keep going down that list. And typically with other projects that the city's done using that format, we wind up with some modest savings at the end because of the timing of, you just can't put everything into the scope fast enough to spend down to 0 pennies. But so we'll get as close as we can and try to do as much of that desired work as we can. So I think that's all I really wanted to share about this sheet. Happy to answer questions. Looks like there's one.
One quick one, just so I got a little confused on the bond premium hanging out there on the side.
Yeah.
So does the original budget include
It
the
does.
bond premium?
Yes.
It might be good to have it put up.
Yeah, do that. Thanks for that clarification.
I guess one thing, Alan, we've opened a couple of project bids here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But maybe you want to share that trend because that's encouraging.
Sure. So not bond projects, but we did open two between $900,000 and $1.3 million projects for some pedestrian improvements, one package of 3 enhanced crossings, and then some work out on Orchard Heights that includes an enhanced crossing and some additional sidewalk. And we opened those a couple weeks ago. We had 9 or 10 bidders on each job, and the numbers came in several $100,000 below our estimate on each one. So shows you 2 things. One, there's a lot of competition. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with what's happening with ODOT and that kind of thing. So work that we're putting out now is attractive. And that's helping us basically overall on the price and how things are. People are sharpening their pencils. So.
Hey, for the trifecta, how many of them are local?
Well, actually, Emery and Sons got the bid on both of them, so they're both. Yeah.
Beautiful.
One local contract.
High five.
They're fine.
And I would just share a couple of years ago, we would have been lucky to get 2 bidders.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
So we'll hope that continues. The 2026 pavement R&R package, which is another section of Commercial Street and Dokes Ferry, opens in another couple of weeks. So I'm hopeful that because of the time of year that we're out and that competitive environment that we're seeing, that we'll get good results there too. Should be an attractive chunk of work.
I think it's also so smart to have high expectations of costs, so that it really looks good.
Yeah, well, it's funny, sometimes they get accused of pumping up our numbers. But Josh and I have talked about this in a 10-year cycle, right? This is gonna come back around, like we're gonna see ups and downs, so. It's good that the trend is going the right way while we can.
We're probably actually back on track, because at this point in the bond, we were hoping to have been coming under budget
Yeah.
to offset things going above budget later on, so hopefully we're evening out here a little bit.
Yeah, sounds right. Yes,
Can I ask you a question? It's
Sure.
gonna be back to the bonds.
Yeah.
And I'm curious that when I'm looking at the years that these are issued. Oh, it goes out to 3032. I was thinking 30, okay. Never mind.
Really probably 30-33. I mean,
And that was my question, in the sense of, as the last one goes out, is there a limited time of use? Like, can we go beyond the 10 years? Because we have the money, and if the project is delayed or something happens, it doesn't matter that it wasn't completed until 33, 34. Or do we have to have everything completed by the end of the?
So a little bit of a nuanced answer. You have to have the reasonable expectation to spend 85% of the proceeds within 3 years.
Okay,
If something comes up and you don't, I don't see people getting in trouble for that if something outside of your control happens. But there's no requirement, there's no expiration, you don't have to give them back. Even if you hung on to them for 20 years, you wouldn't have to give them back.
okay, that's basically,
Our intention is to try to, finish it, but
within this.
it wouldn't surprise me if the 10-year program was a 12-year program.
That's what I was just wondering. So thank you.
Do you want to look at the other sheet, Alan, as well?
Yeah.
The
Is-
long
is- is
sheet.
okay with that? And really, the second sheet is essentially the same information, just in a little more expanded form. So what it does for each of the projects is give the original budget, and that this sheet's the same way, Bob. It includes any premium that was added to the project in that column. And then the first 3 fiscal years, 23, 24, and 25 are rolled up in the next one, so that's everything we've spent. And then when we get to the green, it shows what's in the budget for this fiscal year, what we've spent through Q1, and what's projected through the rest of the fiscal year. And then in preparation for the bond sale, the yellow portion of the sheet shows the rolled up expenditure projections for the next 3 fiscal years. So kind of that second installment period for the second bond sale that we're projecting. And it goes through each of the projects in the order that we've always presented them. So that's why the order is a little bit different. Blue projects are the ones that are completed or in closeout. The part I think we want to call your attention to here is, I think it shows up on every page, is the upper left. And it gives you where we think we're trending for the actual bond sale amount. So in the upper part of that, where it says available bond funds and expenditures, that's where we are through essentially now through October. And what we had available of the first bond sale, what we're expecting to spend through that point. So we're at like $45 million. That excludes the premium, which we're essentially setting aside out of this calculation, and any interest that we pay. The rest of fiscal year 2026, we're expecting to spend about 40 million. And then the next 3 fiscal years, around 107 million. So if you do all that math, it shows us as $102 million that we need. And so that tells you essentially about where our bond sale would be.
Yeah, okay,
That
thank you.
makes sense.
Yes, it did. So thank you. That kind of tied it together, what I was asking.
Which I think technically you guys can make the decision, but what we'd like feedback on is generally we're feeling pretty comfortable with that 100 million in the second issuance, and just wanted to check that as a bond oversight committee. Does that still feel like the right amount to issue at this point?
Well, based on what I'm seeing here, yes.
Yeah, and then also, I think the plan of action, $1 million every year, I think that's great to continue.
Yeah, it's feeling like it's matching fairly well, especially now that some of the larger projects are picking up and spending some dollars. That's where, like the Civic Center is really getting to where it's gonna spend the whole the funds here next for a while.
Yeah, so I think overall, the trend, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're gonna continue to be able to deliver like we have been, just stay on budget and on time. And if that's the case, then yeah, it makes sense to just keep the program that we laid out at the beginning.
Good deal. Thank you.
So that was all the big setup for Kelly's item that.
Oh, man. Well, we'll see about that, won't we, Alan? Okay. So yes, I have a very colorful presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. Simple, but so we've had a lot of conversation, around the table about, hey, what are we using? How are we going to address project savings? How are we going to address those dollars? Tell me more about bond premium. So this presentation is kind of an initial, winding touch base with you guys, see how you're feeling, and then hopefully get your feedback and then return to you guys with a more firmed up idea of what you would like to see formally used, like for bond savings and premium. So kind of is introducing that.
Can I interject just one little thing?
Yes.
So we've had a couple instances, as you saw, where we've
Use
got a specific ask, for bond premium. What we're trying to set up here is, when do you want that ask? And when should it be fairly automatic? Just how do you want to structure that policy going forward? So it doesn't feel like everything is a one-off special request.
Thank you. That was much more eloquent. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so the goal of this is to both have a common understanding of and projection for project savings, and then the use of bond premium and interest. So they're both additional monies that can be used for bond approved projects, but kind of how do we address the potential use of those, right? So the first thing we're going to start with is the use of project savings. So I need to move this little thingy, but seems pretty clear, but essentially project savings, a project that has been completed as intended, but there are savings to be used, right? So here are some conversations that we, so like Josh and Brian have had about what potential uses, but don't laugh, you did, I was there, I wrote it down, about what project savings can be used for, right? So in red is kind of staff's recommendation and idea. So essentially, we want to prioritize completing projects as promised in the bond, right? So whatever we promise the community to outline and do is what we first want to use project savings for, in case there's overages. So if we notice, hey, projects are going over in this category, within the category specific project, but we have savings from this other project in the category, using them together to complete the promised project. So an example of that that Alan alluded to was the bridge retrofit. The next tier would be to use project savings to enhance elements within the project category. So say I'm going to pick on sidewalks because it's easy for my mind to picture. We completed the projects alluded to in the sidewalks portion of the bond, but we have savings and we could do more infill, or we could do more expansion, right? Using it first for sidewalks rather than taking it and putting it into another category.
Okay.
And then the last option would be that taking the savings out of one category and moving it and putting it to another. So this is kind of like the initial tiered idea of what we would propose to use project savings for generally. Oops, that's not the cap. Here we go. So a little bit more about that, what those other two options would be. So enhancements and other projects. So for the enhancements, there are kind of two options with that. You could either use it to expand a project scope. So an example would be like a longer strip of sidewalk improvement, right? You initially approved 30 feet. We have savings, we want to do 40 feet. Or you could take the savings and add additional projects. So rather than doing 30 feet, expanding it to 40, we're gonna take that portion and do 10 feet elsewhere. So that's a second option. And then the use in other project categories, again, pretty understandable. We would take it from one bucket, the savings, and put it into another bucket. So that's, before I move on, that's the conversation about bond savings. Does that in general feel good / understandable maybe to the committee?
Does to me. Anybody else?
Or anyone have initial heartburn, like, no, I want to put it into another category?
Not as a priority.
Okay, not from the jump. Okay, perfect. That's helpful. Okay, good. So now, oh, go ahead. Did someone say something? Okay, sorry. Nervous. Okay. So, the next conversation is the use of bond premium and interest earnings. So let's talk a little, this one gets a little bit more nuanced. So it is very exciting. We love bond premium. We love more money to spend on the community. So bond premium, just as a definition, so it's kind of an incentive that a bank or institution adds as part of the bidding package. So Josh was talking about, we go out to bid, we say, hey, invest in this awesome Salem community of all these projects. And the banks all clamor and try to get our business, right? And so what they'll do is they'll incentivize and say, hey, we'll throw an additional $7 million at you if you go with our bid, right? We have great interest in all that. So with our last issuance, we did get a great amount of bond premium, about 7.3 million. This has accumulated with interest earnings up to $11.6 million as of yesterday. I checked last night. And that's after some expenditures have come out, right? So we, like Alan and Josh talked about and how Bob pointed out, we've used some bond premium in projects. We've also used bond premium to pay for the administration of the bond package in general. So the current balance is sitting about 11.6 million. Important to note, this is also a picture of our official statements. That thing, if you want to look about everything you can know in the city, that's what it looks like.
So it's awfully tiny.
It is very tiny.
There's a bigger one. Don't worry.
There's a bigger one, but
I got that.
yeah, basically, yes. So important to note, the money that we get for bond premium or the interest earnings can only still be used on the bonds. So we can't go and use it other places, right? Okay.
And just to clarify that really quickly, so it can be used for anything that's allowed within the bond proposal, the ballot language. It's not like you can only use it for those specific projects.
Thank you, Josh.
But there's some pretty broad language that, like city facilities, things like that, where it could be allowed to be used.
So, and just to make sure I understand, so you were given additional funds because of going with that choice. And it's raised, is that money that you have sitting somewhere that is earning that interest, or is it at the bank still earning that interest?
So each general obligation bond package is required to have its separate investment portfolio. So that's,
I've seen it in the finance committee.
yeah, so that it's earning its own interest, it's sitting in investments, and we work with
Okay,
Public Works to understand, okay, here's the project schedule, so like in
you have to
March,
plan it out.
when we get to 100 million, it'll be okay. Well, some of these aren't gonna hit till year 3, so we're gonna put 60 million in 3-year investments, maybe 20 million 2-year investments. And I've added this to the balance and trying to maximize them as consistently.
And the outside consultants also help you with that.
They do, yes.
Yes, all right, thank you.
Okay, good question. Okay, so this is where we get into kind of the policy questions we have for you. So Councilor Nishioka must have read ahead, or she just knew. No, you just knew. Don't say sorry. So one of the conversations we want to actually have with you is the allocation of interest earnings. So currently, this issuance, for the premium, we have it sitting in its own siloed cost center within the bond program, and it's earning interest, right? So a potential thing we could do is we could separate out that, 11.6 million and invest it and allocate it across the different project categories. So what we could do is say, hey, you know, of the $100 million, I think Civic Center is 39 million, for some reason that sticks in my mind. Sorry, what was it?
39.4.
Perfect, so we
4 or
could,
5.
oh, I'm talking to the experts here, so we could take that 11.6 million. And then find out what that 34% of the 100 was, right? And have the Civic Center have interest earnings, a proportion of that to their package, right? Or we could keep it all together as we have been and to maximize earnings across all of the programs. So that's one conversation or thought to have. Should we silo the interest in the premium based on the allocation of the issuance or leave it all together? Brian Martin,
Yes, can I add one thing?
yes, please.
But I kind of want to go back to a little bit of how we came up with these prices to begin with, when the bond was set up. You know, it was over 10 years. We weren't sure how they were all going to hit. We decided, let's inflate everything in 5% for 5 years, knowing that hopefully within the first 5 years, projects will come in lower, but the last 5 years they'll come in higher, and maybe it all balances out in the end, and we end up even. But the other thing is when we came up with all of these projects, we didn't come up with them to say, we want X amount in parks and Y amount in streets and this amount somewhere else. It was, what are the projects that we need? We knew we needed park projects, we needed street projects, we needed a civic center, and the costs just came out to be what they were going to be. We knew the total needed to be at about 300 million, and that's what our goal was. So in some ways, when you look at the cost per category, it just worked out that way based on the projects that we needed, not necessarily that, oh, I want 20 million to go to parks and 100 million to go to streets and, you know, X million to go somewhere else. So in some ways, the numbers, when you start thinking about buckets and saying, well, should we put it there because that's how much money was originally allocated there? It wasn't really laid out to necessarily be that way. So.
Which is why I think, to your point, it's all together. Plus, we've never done an issuance like this. All our issuances have been single issuances. So we've never had the question to address. So we wanted to just bring that concept to you guys.
Yeah, for full clarity, other projects, like you talk about the library or the police station or streets and bridges. For that single issuance, if there was premium, it was simply absorbed into the project program or interest the same. And generally what we saw is the scope was not necessarily expanded, but they were able to more fully utilize certain project elements. Because usually you start with, you know, the project budget usually isn't quite enough to get everything that people are looking for.
So, of course, I feel that it would be wiser to keep it in one bucket so that the unknowns could be addressed when they become apparent. Instead of trying to say a certain percentage goes to this one, well, what if it's not needed? Or if maybe another project needs more and we've allocated it for something else. I feel like this just gives a more flexibility and opportunities for what the future still has to hold in the sense of costs for projects that may be maybe more involved, like the Liberty Bridge, like, oh, wow, we had no idea. So it just gives a little more flexibility. I think it'd be better to keep it as one and needed as needed.
Yeah, I feel good about the second option as well.
I don't think we're gonna have any problem finding a place for it.
I will have a home, I am sure.
I think just for your consideration, I think there will be some point where we'll want to address it. And maybe it's,
Yes,
you know, next spring, we're gonna issue dollars, you know, if we get premium with that dollars, if we see that getting to be a larger portion, you know, here in like a couple of years, it might be a conversation. It's like, okay, well, we're halfway through the program. The risk is half of what it was. You know, let's make some decisions about those dollars. But I agree wholeheartedly right now, you know, we're still pretty early in the program.
And it's earning good interest as it is.
so, and again, that's how I'm feeling, like, let's keep it there, and then when need it, or if something comes up, I think it just is.
I agree, that's just what I was thinking. At this point in the program, we want to be cautious, be prepared for contingencies for expenses or costs to go up. And this is a good way to have that kind of contingency. I agree with you. Over time, we should look at that, but not, I think the alternative of committing it to specific projects now, or categories is, yeah, is maybe later we get to that point where we're at the end and have that surplus. Which should be unfortunate.
But just a general question, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding this correctly, and I'm thinking too much. But it occurs to me that if we wait till mid, and I like the idea of having more contingency, being a risk averse person. However, it feels to me like if we wait for mid bond period, and I'm assuming these funds have the same constraints, have to be spent on the same timeline, we may preclude more challenging projects from being addressed at this phase. For example, if I have been sitting around listening to the struggles of the transportation part, the sidewalk part, I know that sidewalk projects get really complicated. And I think that most of you have spent quite a bit of time actually noodling on some really hard projects. And it occurs to me that if we wait for the midpoint and there's a requirement to spend before the end of the period, I see you shaking your head. I wonder if we are, in essence, like narrowing the scope of what you all might be able to do with the funds at the midpoint. Like if you wanted to push more sidewalk priorities now, that might give staff time to do all the engineering work and then other stuff to, those to me are just always so complicated. So I don't know. I'm curious about this idea.
So if I may, just really quickly, so there's no, so that's the kind of, you have to have the intent to spend 85% within the 3 years. You know, after that 3 years has elapsed, and that time constraint is no longer there, right? So there's no time constraint on spending the dollars. And I think it kind of goes back to kind of the first slide Kelly showed, you know, or maybe it was the second one, kind of the, yeah, this one right here. You know, I think the bond oversight committee, if you were to look at something like this, it's like, okay, prioritize completing projects as intended in their current scope. And if you can't do that, coming after bond premium or interest, right? And then after that, it's like, okay, you know, then use it to enhance or add projects. I think the buckets are particularly problematic to try to add dollars to, because you know, sidewalks, you could spend $500 million on it and still not meet all the needs, right?
Yes, we'd still get all the complaints.
And we still wouldn't be
Yeah.
done.
They wouldn't be done if
Right.
you have a lot more sidewalks to take care of too.
Krishna, did you have something to add?
Yeah, speaking of sidewalks, so, you know, with the neighborhood association meetings that I have been attending to, that is the one topic that comes consistently about sidewalks. And people do talk about the safety concerns that are associated with it. I think, you know, we as a city have to kind of take a step back a little bit and think about, and to Courtney's point, do we kind of, I mean, I know we can't solve the entire sidewalk problems, but it really concerns me about, is there more that we need to do to address the safety concerns of the community, right? So anyway, I'm just kind of thinking about this a little bit. It has been fresh over the past 1 week with the 3 different neighborhood association meetings. And I just told Brian that, hey, we need to talk about sidewalks after this. But so I'm kind of pausing on this a little bit about that. There is an urgent need from the community, it feels like right now. And Councilor Nishioka is shaking her head because like every meeting that I have been with you, it's like, yeah, people are really frustrated about their own safety as they're walking on the sidewalk, right? So again, I'm not suggesting anything, but I think we need to take a pause on this a little bit to see if there is anything we can do differently.
I just wanted to have Josh confirm, the premium, does that have the same spend down requirement as the premium free?
It does, but you know, I would classify it as the 15% that doesn't have that spend requirement. So I think we're okay.
Councilor Barney, did you have something?
Well, I just wanted a clarification. City manager, are the sidewalk needs infill or repair of existing? What are the concerns? we're focused on?
Repair of the existing is what we are hearing,
Yeah,
right?
it's mostly repair,
Mostly-
older mostly repair, and it oftentimes involved with trees. Not, the trees that have grown that aren't the proper trees, and then, of course, we have the whole cycle of removal and then fixing and replanting, so it's not just the sidewalks, it's oftentimes other things.
And these are older neighborhoods. This isn't.
I think that, I think they're pretty much all over.
I think the ward would maybe make a difference, like in Ward 6, it's more about infill, I think, than repair.
There's a lot of
I
infill.
think in
even
Ward 8, it's about
non-existent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Getting to school safely, et cetera.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
even the street that I live on, which is a block from, I mean, it's just down, the school is just down the street, I'm the only house with sidewalk. Everybody else doesn't have any. And so there are a lot of places that are even in my ward that don't have sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's surprising.
So on this particular thing, I know, Brian, you were talking about it just before the meeting, like, so one is the bond money that we are using to pay for these, but we also have some projects that are lined up to be able to non-bond money, for lack of better terms. So we have that, so we should have some kind of an idea about, like, we have an idea about what we are addressing with this, right? To me, from my perspective, I think some kind of education to the community about, hey, this is where we are at, this is the available funding through bond or non-bond, bond money, this is what we are doing. If there is more that needs to be done, it's really that conversation about how to move forward with it. There are choices, there are options. But I do think that educating the community and then having them some input into how to move forward is important, because we don't have the funding, right? To take care of everything. If there is more that needs to be done, there are always options, but the community has to be okay with it and they can have a say into it. So there's a bigger conversation at some point. I think we do have to have this instead of continuously or constantly telling the community, sorry, we can't do anything about it, right? Like, which is true, but I think if I'm on the receiving end, I would like to see some options, whatever those are.
One path to achieve that would be to build out a chapter of our ADA transition plan that focuses in on sidewalks and has an imagined future path. What we can do now and what we can do in what increments we can capture in future periods of time.
I didn't mean to derail the entire conversation to focus it on sidewalks, but I know, Mr. Corey.
Well, the derail, I was going to agree with what your concern is, just to modify, I mean, I start with the contingency and with Josh on, well, you don't want that contingency to just be wrapped up until we're too late to make good decisions about how to spend it. I do think we should be thinking about the sorts of things that we would do with the premium for, the savings. Now start to, what are the additional pick an example, what are the additional sidewalk projects that we would do? Or in the Civic Center, we've talked about other kinds of enhancements we would want to make that go beyond the budget. Are we prepared to do that? And at whatever point we decide there's more than we need in contingency, how do we allocate that?
And I think the challenge that we'll find is some of these projects are at a different stage of maturity than others. And so for the Civic Center, as an example, we've already made decisions that have precluded some action.
Yeah.
And because of the phase that we are in that project, the options, the things that we're holding that we might do if there's contingency within that project, that list is getting tighter and tighter because we've already passed, in the game of life or whatever. Choose the ladders. We've already passed that.
Well, that was something I was thinking. The way that we constructed the bond is there are very specific projects like the Civic Center or the fire stations or the fire equipment that we've made progress on. And then there are more general needs like sidewalks.
And signals.
And yeah.
And on the sidewalk front too, we have this ginormous community generated list already of need. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask, because my memory is a little blurry because of the number of meetings. But was the sidewalk issue one of the scoring That went under this, the whole scoring deal, so we would have to revisit that if we were going to add something.
I don't know that we would have to revisit the scoring. I think that the way the group dealt with that challenge was taking those things that were the highest priority based on the scoring.
Right.
So all you would essentially do is just be capturing more of them up, because you wouldn't have such constraint over the cash set.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could share a couple of things. So our street maintenance crews, they have a very extensive list of all the sidewalks that need to be repaired. We allocate about between 2.5 and 3 million a year of gas tax funds that goes towards sidewalk maintenance. And that go through, it was not based on any scoring of the city, it's based on scoring that they put together based on more risk-based versus overall based and everything else that goes into it. That's happening every year, not nearly enough money as we need. The two bond buckets, one was the infill, which we developed a scoring criteria for, and we ranked those, and we just had council authorize going forward with 9 of those projects. If we wanted to allocate more money, the list goes on, and so we already have that list as part of the points out. We could allocate more money to that at any point in the future. But that's for the infill, not for the. So it would address what the mayor and councilor Barney has talked about, which is missing sidewalks versus sidewalks that need repair. We also have a bucket for sidewalk repair, and that's actually going to come back to this committee, I think either in January or February, to show and rank that bucket of funding to go toward repair. So again, it's not near enough money, but that again has criteria that was set forth by this committee. So anyway, so there'll be a scoring list there, and there'll be an opportunity there too at some point in the future if we want to use that premium to say, all right, we got from A to Z, now we're gonna go double A to double C.
And could you remind me just really quick when we know about the second tranche premium?
Put the bonds in.
No, but like March. So there may be some serendipity in that you may have awareness, no?
I mean, I don't disagree. I feel like sidewalks deserve a longer policy discussion, because we've been talking about it ever since I've been here in every budget committee cycle, you know. It's something we talk about, so I feel like a different approach might be appreciated. I just think we have to be a little careful, you know, imagining new needs, because I feel like there's still some bond projects that are probably double-digit million needs still. You know, the fire station estimates are coming in much higher than we anticipated, so I feel like if we could just take a deep breath and, you know, try to make sure we talk about priorities about fulfilling current obligations before we have new ones. I'm not saying they're not valid, I'm not saying that that's like necessary, I just want to be careful to make sure we're approaching it in a logical way.
And
Josh, I
more
agree
about
with you
premium.
on that. Definitely agree with you on that, but also I think it's a kind of the right balance. At what point can we say, yes, we feel comfortable to invest into something different instead of waiting for too long, right? I think that's the whole point, is to find that that balance.
Yeah.
But I'm in agreement.
Okay. Right. There we go. Okay. So we talked about that. All right, question number 2. Back to this.
So back to this, okay.
Back to this, I'm sorry. You have to listen to me squawk. Okay, so premium policy question. So the second question is something that would be helpful for staff is, aside, when should city be able to access premium? Like what, besides administration, what should trigger the use, right? So some conversations were had around opportunity costs. So if we are on a street, Alan, help me out, I'm doing street work and I realize, oh, I'm getting in there and there's this issue we didn't anticipate. That's gonna cost an extra X amount. Would that be a valid use of bond premium? It would be, but in terms of, would you guys feel comfortable with that? Obviously, also additions for overages due to those that are found in the field. So that's one kind of thing to noodle on. The second thing is is there kind of an up to amount where staff would be able to access bond premium without having to come to the committee for something like that, right? If you have staff that are out there and the engineering team's like, hey, we're cutting into the ground, we have this chance to repair this thing, it's gonna cost $70,000, I'm just putting that out there, I don't know. Can we, as staff, go ahead and trigger that or wait until the next bond committee? And is there a number that kind of feels comfortable? So a recent example of this was the Civic Center. We came in May and asked for some premium use for the Civic Center. That was a big number, obviously. So I don't think that would be something that we would be proposing, but.
I remember the bridges, the rebar
Mhm.
in the bridges, that 70,000 number.
I think it was, yeah, so. Is there kind of that? Well, go ahead, sorry, Council.
So, we raised the amount, council raised the amount for you to move forward with other expenditures from 50,000 to 100,000 CIP. And would that be sound like a good number? In the sense of not needing to come back to us, or do you feel it needs to be less than that?
I mean, in all honesty, I don't have feelings about it.
You don't?
I mean, I think it's really up to the committee. You wanna hear about, hey, this looks like it's coming in 20,000 over, that's fine, we'll bring it to you. Do you not wanna hear about it, and just an FYI, that's fine too. I think it's just up to you, what level of detail do you want to get involved at? I'm Brian, Alan, do you guys have?
Well, I think sometimes there's quick decisions that doesn't mean and necessarily wait for a meeting. And there's nothing that would prevent us from coming back at a following meeting and say, hey, we had to make this decision, we went forward with it. This is kind of giving this information to you, but those would be the rare cases, right?
So that would be if our contingency is already exhausted for that project, right? Yeah.
Do either of you have a feeling that what that might be? Is it, is it 50,000? Or is it more than that? Because you're the ones that are seeing the bids or seeing, the overcosts that come in. And then you have to bring it back to us. I guess I'm just wondering if you have kind of an idea where you're comfortable telling us later because you had enough money to move forward and, do you have a number in mind?
I mean, I would think 100,000
Yeah.
would be about right, and one of the reasons I feel that way is the engineering team through all the delivery projects. There's a chain of command and what authority people have to approve something, and as public works director, I think I'm up to 100. I'm up to 100. But I definitely want the city manager involved too. So I think if it's premium based, it's probably about a right size number. It could be less, but
It seems in your line of work, that's a reasonable number, because you do very expensive things,
Yeah, it's hard to do much for us.
right?
Exactly. Can't do anything with it.
I was gonna ask, is that more authority you have at home?
Well,
Not gonna go there, are they?
in all seriousness, that $100,000 limit, I feel good about, you all know your work. And you would know whether or not in a moment you need to make that kind of decision, and I feel good about that. I would want the committee to hear about it later, to have a report for transparency for the community and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
And just for clarity, sorry, just real quick. So Brian, under the procurement rules, can add the 100,000. So this would be trying to match it with the actual funding source. Because there are two different processes, right? So this would be, hey, this is a recommendation from the bond oversight committee approved by city council. If you make that recommendation, that we could access, $100,000 per project, with staff discretion is what that would be. Separate and distinct from the procurement process.
yeah, the money I have access to now is already there and already budgeted.
Yeah,
Right. Needing
this would
additional money.
this would be utilizing the funds that were sitting available.
Councilor Bunny?
Thank you. The $100,000 does make sense to me. I'm wondering about instances or condition, for instance, if it said $100,000 or 10% of the project cost. Do we need something else put in there? As kind of an alternate? I just am
The
trying.
big center is $40 million, just from census state.
Okay, or I was thinking the lesser of the
Yeah.
two or something like that, some
10%
sort
more.
of something or other. No, the maximum, well, whatever, I was just thinking of another way to kind of word it,
Or to
instead of
have
just a set.
have a double up.
100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know what that would look
I
like.
definitely don't think we need more. I mean, I think that would be plenty. So if the percentage is to give us more, I don't think we need to go there.
It would just be less, like if it's a $600,000.
Not more than
replacement, it
10%.
would be 60,000.
We're gonna try, like with the bridges, right? If you see something coming down the road, we're gonna try to let you folks know what's happening, even if it's informal. And I think, yeah, it's a rare circumstance, right, where we can't absorb the usual hiccups along the way with contingency that we have built into the project, but it's possible if it's something that's on a tight budget, so. It's the time that worries me more than like, I'm kind of with Josh. I'll tell you about every project as long as I have time to get ready. Sometimes I gotta make decisions really fast.
100,000 is fine with me, I was just kind of throwing that out there.
And it seems like a standard number that is being used in other forms too. And then, you know, we have to get council to approve it if that's what this committee recommends and then you would bring it back to us and council if was needed, sounds like.
It would streamline even that council process, because even if we were just
Good.
letting this group know as an FY, then it wouldn't have to go
Go
to
through.
council. 'cause they
Okay.
already have approved.
But it seems like that would be efficient, very efficient.
Sure.
So it's, yeah, go ahead.
I think you've talked about most of the concerns that I had or suggestions. I like the idea of, you know, 100,000 or not more than 10% of the project budget is after the contingency. And so you can use the contingency and on a lot of this, it would be good to see the reporting of what spending is there on contingency, what spending is there out of the principal.
Like as a line item.
Right, and it just so that we get reports on this. I certainly understand you need the flexibility to take advantage of opportunities, and deal with emergencies that this would give you. So I think that's great. The only other thought I had was, is there a total amount of that we want to deal with? I mean, we talked about 100,000 per project, but one could go through the list of projects.
We go through a few million bucks.
I think that, yeah, then that comes back to how much do we want to release, right?
Right.
Because
I mean, would you feel comfortable just to kind of do it in tranches, like if we just said, hey, up to 1.5 million, you know, for the next 2 years or something? Like just
If it's always on the agenda and you all are meeting weekly, it would never
Monthly.
it would never get that high.
Sorry. But it would be hard to do, to get way out of control without you all having.
I mean, I don't even see the approaching 500,000 probably, like.
There's a goal.
Don't call project managers that can.
And I have to tell you, if it started getting above that 100,000, then I think we'd.
You would,
want to know
you'd be
about it
coming to
before
us,
we-
yeah. We get it cheap.
You don't feel comfortable doing it.
Okay.
And then just, you know, since we're going to council with the program, and we can bring this back, you know, this is.
I'm
Right-
taking
Right
notes.
now, but.
Yeah.
Is there a amount that this committee wants authority to approve without going to city council? I mean, that's also something we could ask for. It's like, okay, staff can approve up to 100,000. Is there an amount that this committee wants to approve without an additional approval at city council?
Because so few of us are on this committee. I don't.
Noodle on
You
it.
can think about it. It's not something that's required, but it would, depending on what it was, you know, it could reduce the time needed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand.
So we have one more slide and then we have one more presentation, so I'm gonna hurry up. Trying to hurry up. Okay, so last question. If we've accessed bond premium and we've asked for $100,000 and it's not used should it return to the premium pot? So should I go back into the piggy bank or should it go to be used elsewhere in an active project? So I came to you guys and said, hey, I need $100,000 of premium, ended up only using 70,000 of it. Should that 30,000 go back into the piggy bank or should I go and use it on another project in the category that's active?
And the project Alan mentioned earlier, the 2024 payment R&R. But $660,000 of premium and only spent 285, so.
Yeah, so should that be for
So, yeah, does it go in the premium piggy bank or just stay?
Stay there.
stay in the pavement? Checks, yeah.
This really should be a board game.
If it's already designated for a project.
Premium.
But I finished the project. I came in under, I ended up not needing. My mom gave me $500 for my rent in college because I needed it. But I only actually needed 400. Do I have to give her back the 100 or do I can I go buy clothes?
So the problem with me.
I was thinking of clothes when I was a kid, but like, yeah, so.
Or furniture.
Or furniture, oh my gosh, a bubble chair or a blow up chair, yeah, so should I put it back into an active project or should it go back into the?
Wow.
To me, that would be dependent if the project if the project is of similar, I mean, like if it's in, I almost think that's partly project dependent.
Okay.
Because some projects are very specific, but then the sidewalks are a much wider project, so it feels like it would be almost a project dependent. To me.
I mean, I feel like we've set up the allocation of premium policy if there's a need to complete this project. So I think it goes back to
The piggy bank.
the piggy bank and it's allocated to whatever other projects need the premium.
Does that,
Works.
that
Yeah.
my brain
And that-
works
and-
that way too. I am curious though, does that create a delay?
No,
Okay, good.
and since it's all, so just so you know, it's structured, it's all in the capital improvement fund. Each in separate cost centers, and we can move between them administratively,
okay.
so it's. For us, it's just either, if it's in the same fiscal year, we reverse partial transaction, or we just do another transfer.
So it's just for.
No, just, I was gonna say, I think you owe your mom $100.
Yes, I probably do. Okay, so I'm done with my portion, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all your fabulous feedback and I'm gonna put something together on paper for you guys to respond to and edit more.
Thank you.
And now,
Little piggy to get fatter.
isn't he cute? The premium piggy, thank you. And then I'm gonna go. So I think there's one more thing maybe.
But just more pictures.
Yeah, the photos.
Yes, sir. Let me get that up. Oops.
Watch this one. Oh, wait.
All right, here we go.
So we put this together just for kind of, it was a good reminder for me, it was. In everything that we've accomplished this year.
It's like, once it's done, it's,
Yeah.
it's gone.
I'm like a goldfish, we jump around the bowls, But anyhow, I just thought this would be nice to kind of share everything that we worked on this year, so I'll go ahead and. So I mentioned the Silverton Road pavement rehab job, this one is just getting underway, we did this, the sewer work is wrapping up and the pavement work is going through next year. These pictures show 17th and Silverton Road. So they demoed out some of the old signal and we've already got new curb and gutter for it. So not the most exciting, but it's cool to see progress out there. There's a lot more to come.
That's gonna be nice when the fair comes around.
Yeah, it's gonna make a big difference.
Yeah. That's just downright dangerous.
Yeah,
It is.
we're fixing a long
I love
needed,
that.
or we're providing a long needed remedy.
Editors.
This is Liberty Street, so this is actually from 2020. We did wrap up that project this year, so. Folded this one back in, this is the bike box and the new pavement right by Fire Station 1.
A lot of people don't realize that the green, that they're not supposed to.
Drive into it, that's why we put the bollards there.
Wait
They
years.
Totally get it. The Gilchrist Street, these are pictures from around the 22nd. And the Gilchrist intersection that shows the work continued this year. Out to 25th. And just before Halloween, we actually were able to reopen to two-way traffic, so was a real struggle for the businesses out there towards 25th. It was really hard on them. And I want to give our project manager a lot of credit for working hard to listen to those folks and communicate with them. And he worked really hard with the contractor to get that open as fast as we could. So we lucked out. We got good paving weather, striping weather. So it is back open to two-way traffic. There's still construction going on. It's not perfect yet, but
Who was the project manager?
Will Kenzie, you might have met him. He helped us out on a couple of tours out there. This is Marine Drive. So we've got the bigger project that extends all the way from Harrod down to Fifth. But this is the end towards Harrod, so the north end, where we built a section early with the Applegate Veterans Housing Project. So this is a cool drone shot of that section that got built in the development there.
That's real.
That's for real.
That's such a big lift, like for all, yeah, that's amazing.
A lot of coordination.
Can you go back? Yes, ma'am. Is that all sidewalk on the right-hand side?
Yeah, so there's a multi-use path on the one side, so it's a little bit
Okay.
wider. And it's tight to the curb because there's a turn lane there,
Mm.
where the turn lane tapers out further down the road, actually going towards us, Kelly, so.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
Then you'll get a median strip with trees in between.
Okay.
This is near the Liberty and Davis intersection. So you might remember the community was really anxious to get a signal there at Liberty and Davis. The Davis Road project in the bond was towards the very end, like 2030 or something like that. We were able to advance some funds, use a little SDC funding and some other development funding to start that part of the project early and build that signal. I didn't have a good picture of the signal yet because the poles are just going in now. But this crossing here helps us solve a problem at that signal where you can see there's a section of missing sidewalk where the porta potty is. You can get that scrubbed out of the photo. I probably have the technology, I just didn't do it. So this mid-block crossing helps students and other folks going down towards Crossler to get across the road safely and not have to go on that section where there's no sidewalk, because we couldn't quite get the funding to do that piece. And this was Bob's idea, so.
Yeah.
Great addition to the project. Yes.
Oops, sorry, Bob.
Lots less expensive than a lot of sidewalk.
Yeah, no, this was a great solution.
Do you want to stand next to that slide and get a photo?
I have pictures of it.
Yeah, we could have put you in front of the porta potty. And then I think these are the last couple on the bridge strengthening project. We talked about these here before, but I've got pictures from each bridge. So just a reminder, what we're doing here was adding essentially reinforcement to these bridges to beef up their strength and allow more heavy vehicles to use them. So underneath on the 15th Street side on the left there, you can see where we cut into the existing structure and grouted in new rebar. And then we're doing similar work from the top side. So you can see that on the 17th Street picture, adding new rebar to the deck. If you go to the next one, Kelly. Liberty Street, I think we might have shared this photo with you before we talked about it. So also adding, they're called stirrups, but essentially additional rebar that goes around the section of the beam, provides additional strength.
Oh, I see.
And then Mission Street on the right, more work on the deck, and then it's a picture of some of the paving that was happening at night.
Is the load restriction automatically removed?
So we have to work with ODOT to get it removed, and we've got it done for one or two of them, and we'll have the rest shortly.
Is it totally removed or is it just bumped up?
It's removed, yeah. So it's now any vehicle that's legal on the street under the current weight restrictions, which is 80,000 and 105, I think, depending on the axle configuration, is allowed to use. Now,
Yeah, I won't bring a grain truck down there.
I was gonna say, we don't want, yeah, right, and we don't want semis on some of these roads.
Okay.
So that was it. No, that's not it. That's just transportation. There's more. I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is the park section.
Wow.
The skate park is not a bond project, but it's such a cool picture that we had to throw it in. It is adjacent to a bond project, so that's a good look at the concrete work once it was all done. And now the landscaping is going in, so it looks even better now.
Yeah,
And then-
it looks great.
On the right is the one of the new baseball fields with the artificial turf that we talked about with this committee. And they look really great. I think that's gonna be a tremendous improvement for that facility, allow a lot more use.
Yeah, it will. I like, well, first of all, the olive pit ground stuff
Yeah.
instead of the rubber.
It's really
and the
neat.
turf is great.
I was fascinated by
And
that.
then the different places where you can put the bases so you can adjust for softball or baseball or whatever. We say with the pitching now.
They have the removable mound, so
Yeah,
it's much
yeah,
more flexible.
fantastic.
Stand up in a lot more weather, so that's really good. And in the very background of that picture, you can also see the soccer field work that was going on. This picture was taken. That's all done now and seeded. I think we're feeding a lot of geese out there. We do some more seeding to be done in the spring and everything established. This is Highland Park. So this is one of our, this year we finished the 3 out of our 5 court rehabs. So we finished the whole program. Island, we did tennis courts and then pickleball striping. So there's 2 pickleball courts and the tennis courts. The option is to do pickleball on that side too.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Hoover Park, this is the one where Rob and the park staff worked really hard with the neighborhood on what they wanted, and they weren't into pickleball. They wanted this futsal court. It's essentially hard surface soccer. It's really, really cool. And so it's also can be used as basketball. You can see the basketball facility there too, but there's little goals underneath each one of the basketball nets. And so that was another one where folks wanted to use it so bad they were climbing the fence to try it out.
Whoa.
But it's really a really cool facility. And then this is Livingston Park, so one of our playground upgrades.
By the way, it's lovely.
Oh, great.
That was in there. It's so sweet.
It is. It is.
Beautiful neighborhood park.
Yeah, I think that's really a
It really
great
is.
example of what a neighborhood park can be when you invest a little bit in it. So.
Especially, it may be obvious, it wasn't to me until I went in there, that the neighborhood butts right up to the
Yeah,
playground
you
equipment.
can walk right in.
Yeah.
I have a
Very cool.
picture of Counselor Nishioka on the all access equipment that anybody can roll on. Try it out. I didn't put it in here,
Why is that not on the PowerPoint?
but yeah, new equipment and new sidewalks, better access, so a good end result. And then Morningside Park had a court rehab on the left. Tennis and basketball and pickleball, and then the playground is new playground.
Very nice.
A good reminder of a lot of good progress.
No, it's good. May I ask a question? Sure. Where are we at with what do they call that? The flooring or whatever
Oh, the ball
surface
protection,
at the bush part?
yeah, we're moving ahead.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Anything else, anybody?
We have one more thing on the agenda, it's meeting schedule. We're suggesting canceling the December 19th meeting and we'll meet again in January if that's okay with you.
Anybody else?
One less meeting?
There you go.
Especially that close to the holidays.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Everybody okay with that? Good deal. All right. If there's nothing further,